everyone. Okay, just trying to share something really quick. 2 moments. That's what I want to share. Okay. I gotcha. Okay. Alrighty, here we go. Go down. Okay. All right. So that is my new intro. I'm super excited about it. Let's see, stop screen. Okay, and I want to see. Let's see comments. Okay, there we go. And I lost it. Hey, Maz. Hope you're doing well. All right, everybody. So the game plan for tonight is that I'm going to tell a true crime story time or story, however you want to look at it. It's going to be about a woman, high past, a woman named Jenny Webb, and situation that happened with her and a man that she thought that she was going to have a baby with. And it's a very interesting story. I think you guys will all enjoy it. And let's just get started. And by the way, I am going to get some help with StreamYard tomorrow because I have no idea how to do anything on here. I'm going to start scheduling these. This is going to be a weekly thing. We're going to do at least one of these a week. I'm going to try and do the true crime true crime content pre-recorded, and then I'm going to do the chat afterward live. But we're improvising right now. Hi, Laura. It's nice to see you. 1 second, guys. I just got to get the doc pulled up. How is everybody tonight? I apologize for being late. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you sharing it. Okay. I also have a thumbnail I really like that I'm gonna have to figure out how to add to this because it's good. Like I was really proud of myself. Like I worked on this all day and still had issues. And like I swear, it's like every night that I'm gonna go live. If I'm not, my daughter's in bed by like 7:30. But the nights that I do go live, she is always up right as I'm about to go live. Tonight was no exception. So I was in there like, come on, go back to sleep, please. Okay, here we go. Pulling this up and also for anybody interested, I was thinking of linking the scripts in the description if you guys would like to go back through and read some of the information yourself, or if you're a reader instead of a listener, those kind of things. Just let me know if that sounds good to you guys, if that's something you would enjoy. If not, totally cool. We can keep it to where I still tell the story and that's that. But I know some people prefer reading. My mother-in-law, like God love her, she has always supported me, but she's always like, send me a link. Let me read it. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with everybody. I think one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen because I have pictures and assets in the script. So I'm going to try to go ahead and share that with you guys. So everybody can kind of go along with me. Try this one. Maybe not. No. Wrong. Cancel. Oh, God, I need a tutorial on this so bad. Present. Share screen. Yeah, I know it's easiest with two monitors. Tab to skip. Yes, this one. Okay. Share. Is that working the way I think it's working or no? Can you guys see me and the doc or no? Just give me a one if you can. Or if you, it looks like you can just see the doc. Does that work? Let's see. Perfect. Yay. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This beautiful lady on our screen is named Jenny Webb, and it was a very disturbing crime. So I'm just going to get started. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, and a friend. Jenny was a 32-year-old woman working in customer service at PF Marquis, an industrial tool company. She was known to her friends and family as a magnetic, charming woman who let nothing keep her down and always seemed to find the good in any given situation. She was extremely loving and sweet. Her mom referred to her as Jenny, the sparkle of the family. In 2011, when Jenny was 8.5 months pregnant with her first child, a boy who she wanted to name Braxton. When she told her family about the pregnancy, oops. Sorry guys. When she told her family about the pregnancy, they were shocked, but Jenny wasn't, because Jenny wasn't seeing anyone in her relationship. Jenny was experienced quite a shock as well, as she didn't know she was pregnant until her 5th month, which, according to Dawn Webb, her mother, was never a question in Jenny's mind whether or not to keep the baby. She knew the moment that she found out that she was going to keep her baby. As her pregnancy progressed, her family became more and more curious about the baby's father. They kept pressing Jenny on the issue until she finally told them that it was a man that she had been friends with for almost 10 years. His name was Kenneth Blue, and she told them that he was a police officer. Her family wanted to know how long this had been going on, if they were together, if they had plans on being, and if he had any plans on being in the baby's life. She finally broke and told her family that they weren't in a relationship and wouldn't be getting into it because Kenneth was married. This right here is a picture of Jenny. She was absolutely beautiful. So Jenny had been under the notion that Kenneth and his wife Lisa had been separated. Jenny, believing that they were working on their divorce, had no longer been, and that they were no longer living in the same home. Jenny was happy to be pregnant. She wasn't holding out any hope for Ken. She knew that there wasn't going to be wedding bells in their future. And she was okay with that. She was very honest with herself about the situation and knew that she was going to be raising her child on her own. Jenny was very happy. She had a great job. She had just bought a house for herself and Braxton. On her final day, which was August 30th, 2011, Jenny went over to her friend Andrea King's house to help Andrea take care of her twins. Jenny informed Andrea that she couldn't stay late because she was meeting with Baby Daddy, a moniker that Jenny had picked up to avoid saying Kenneth's name out loud. As she and Andrea King talked, Jenny began to explain that she wasn't in love with the father of her child and that she just wanted to add him to the baby's birth certificate so that she could collect some child support from him. Guys, does anybody hear my air conditioning? Is that too loud? Because I can change it. Just give me a 1 if it's bad. Hey, Melissa. Well, it turned off, so that worked out. Okay, so Jenny informed Andrea she couldn't stay too late because she was meeting with Baby Daddy, a moniker that she had picked up to avoid saying Ken's name out loud. As she and Andrea talked, Jenny began to explain that she wasn't in love with the father of her child and she just wanted to add him to the birth certificate so that she eventually could collect child support um, from him. She also told Andrea that she did not want to keep his name, that he did not want his name on the birth certificate, and that the reason for their meeting, that was the reason for their meeting after she left. As she left, her last words to Andrea King was a promise to come back the next day. Her last words to her friend were, "See ya." Later that evening, a gruesome discovery was made by uh, officers Kenneth Blue and Tim Patterson, which this has been reported in various ways, and from what I can tell, Tim Patterson made the discovery. I just want to be transparent. Tim Patterson made the discovery, but Ken seemed to show up on scene even though he wasn't near there. Um, but anyway, I'm sorry. So apparently Blue was already on the scene when Patterson arrived. They exited their cruisers at the same time, and Blue says to Patterson, "How would you like to handle this?" As the officers approached the Pontiac Aztec, they stumbled onto a gruesome scene. There was a woman who had fashioned a noose out of an extension cord and wrapped the extension cord through her car's luggage rack as her lifeless body was hanging from it. They began processing the scene, and Blue looked in the woman's purse, finding an extremely detailed suicide note. The note was typed. It was filled with sadness, self-doubt, and a cover-up that seems just a bit too convenient. Jenny insisted that she had lied to everyone about her baby's father. She said that the baby's father was a man named Chris, who she had a one night stand with, and that she was ashamed and didn't want her family to think that she was a quote unquote bore. Other notable lines from the note were, "I've ruined my life. I feel like a failure. I can't even support myself." And this is directly after Jenny had bought her own home for her in Braxton, and she had a great job. So none of this is jiving. And she ended the note that this was the only way. I love you, and I'm sorry, Jenny. As the scene was being processed, officers Blue and Patterson continued to look through her purse for an ID. And when Officer Blue found it, he told Patterson that he, quote unquote, knew her from local bars. When Sergeant Sean Waterman, which is this man in this picture right here, showed up on the scene, he approached Officer Patterson, who told him that he was only on the scene because he was looking for Officer Blue, who wasn't answering radio checks. And he figured that he was out there. I spoke with my aunt, who was chief of internal affairs in the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department in North Carolina. And based on her experience, when an officer misses 2 checks, they'll send a unit out to their last location to find them, meaning that at best, Officer Blue, quote unquote, stumbled onto the scene and that Patterson was only there as collateral damage for Blue's lies at that point. As Blue took evidence photos, the other officers on the scene thought that everything had lined up just a bit too lined up with a quote unquote cut and dry suicide. Sergeant Sean Waterman says, when you look at the scene, it looked like a genuine suicide scene. Sergeant Waterman had one of the hardest jobs as any officer on the scene. As the senior detective of the scene, he was tasked with telling Jenny's family the hard news. Don Webb remembers receiving a call in the middle of the night from Sergeant Waterman saying that he was standing on her porch and asked if she could let him in. From Don's memory, she went downstairs and sat with Sean, and he told her, there's been a suicide. It's Jennifer. Don asked, is she dead? Sean replied with one word that would be absolutely life-changing. Sean said yes. And as Don processed this news, that she was only sure of one thing, which she shared with Sean. Dawn told him that she may be dead, but this was not a suicide. Dawn mentions that the first time that she read the suicide note, how everything in this note was pointing out to her that it was not the writing of her daughter. By the way, this picture of the guy in the hat, this is Officer Blue. Dawn also mentioned that the first Uh, I found this so cute because this is something that my mother would pick up on, but I found it to be endearing in a way. Dawn mentioned the first time that she read the suicide note, she realized that it was in size 10 font, single spaced, and the grammar was terrible. She also added that the contents didn't fit Jenny. Jenny would have written everyone an individual letter in her own handwriting and either a hot pink, green, purple, or glitter, or I'm sorry, or purple glitter gel pens. Dawn stated that she barely even remembers what was in the letter because upon her first read, she could tell when she was not even halfway through that it wasn't Jenny. Dawn's motherly intuition told her this was a forgery, and we see this in so many cases. Motherly intuition typically does not lie. Jenny's friends and family empathetically denied emphatically denied the fact that Jenny could have been suicidal. From all accounts, Jenny was so happy to be having a baby and starting a new life. She had made peace with the fact that she was going to raise her child alone. Sergeant Waterman finds out that Kenneth Blue is the father of Jenny's baby, and he explains that he was in the war, was a paramedic before joining the police force, and it took a lot to quote unquote rattle him. But that finding out an officer, much less the officer that had found the scene, could have and someone who could have actually had a motive, and more importantly, an opportunity to be a part of this. He explained it made him sick to his stomach. This lovely lady that we're looking at right now, this is Dawn Webb, Jenny's mother. Um, Ken Blue was a married man with his wife Lisa. He already had a family, and his involvement in all this, which made his involvement in this all the more insidious. Sergeant Waterman knew the moment that Ken had done this, that all of this had been staged. Buena Vista Township PD could not handle this matter on their own, so the Michigan State Police were called in to conduct an IA, which is Internal Affairs, investigation. Typically in bigger cities, you would have an Internal Affairs department, but due to the size of Buena Vista, they simply did not need one. All right, I'm going to take a break and I'm just going to catch up on chat and then we'll keep going. Sorry, it's taking a second for it to load. Okay. Hey, Marissa. Hey, Stina. I'm glad you guys haven't heard of this. There's actually a documentary out, and I was gonna direct you guys to it after this, but it's insane. This case is so crazy. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it so far. All right, so let's pick back up. Okay, so investigator Alan Ogg of the Michigan State Police would be heading the investigation. When he arrived on scene, nothing was there. The body had been moved. Her vehicle had been towed, and Alan knew that these things were going to make his job more difficult. The amount of involvement that Ken had was overpowering. He was the first officer on the scene. He went through Jenny's purse. He found the suicide note. He found her ID. He looked through the car. He processed the scene. He collected crime scene photos, meaning that Ken had full control of the narrative being pushed that Jenny was suicidal and the reason for any fingerprints or DNA that he may have transferred onto Jenny, her vehicle, the suicide note, her ID, her pocketbook, anything was plausible deniability because he was the officer that found her body. Alan secures the scene until he can get his own forensic team on the ground. Oops, drop down. Let's see. Okay, so Alan secured the scene until he could get his own forensic team on the ground. Forensic scientist Gary Ginther and Valerie Bowman arrived on the scene the following morning. They started to go over the scene, and in a ditch next to where Jenny was found, they found a pair of flip flops. And by the way, where this cruiser is, this is kind of the area where this had taken place. From what I understood, it was kind of if anybody is from the South, it was kind of like a dead end road, had a little part, kind of like a Lover's Lane, if you will. And we'll get to that. It's a little later in the script, but we'll get there. Okay, and this is a typed. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. Let's see. I can't. But that is the typed suicide note. I could read it, but it's all BS. So, but that is a copy, and it's not even signed and any kind of handwriting, anything. It's just typed. Okay. And then 195 feet, come on, stop doing that. 195 feet from where Jenny was found, Gary Ginther finds a cigarette butt, blood, and a necklace charm. Everything is collected and sent to the forensic lab, including Jenny's Pontiac Aztec and Ken's patrol vehicle. When Patterson is interviewed, he explains that he had received no call from Ken. He was simply looking out for Ken, and he explains that he went to a known spot where Ken would, quote unquote, take naps while on shift. Conveniently, that was the exact location where Jenny was found. Patterson stumbled onto the scene, and Ken told him that he had only arrived a few minutes before. Ken said that he was about to call in dispatch for backup when he saw Patterson's headlights approaching. That also doesn't explain why he missed two radio checks. Typically, I think radio checks are between 10 and 15 minutes apart. So realistically, that gives him about 30 minutes that he was unaccounted for. Jenny actually had her in his phone as Ken Cop Boo. And Ken was trying to say that he had only met Jenny a couple of times at a bar. If you remember from the first, she had said that she had known him for 10 years. So he's already, from the very beginning, downplaying any relationship they may have had. Oops. I always get overzealous with the down button and go too far. Okay. It was revealed that Blue had not answered any radio checks for an hour and a half. Oh, shit. An hour and a half before he was found by Patterson on the scene. He was said to have been radio silent from 9:05 p.m. to 10:20 when Patterson got fed up and went to Ken's spot expecting to find him asleep in his cruiser. The location of a secluded spot on the edge of town. Blue's first word to Patterson was, "I was about to call you. I just found this girl." According to Patterson, Blue was disheveled and acting erratically and oddly out of breath. When Sergeant Waterman goes through Jenny's phone, he finds Ken's cell number. Sorry about that. When he goes through, he finds Ken's cell number connected to the Ken Cop Boo name, and he sees that Jenny's phone had made 3 calls to Ken that night. The next damning piece of evidence is that Jenny and Ken had planned to meet at 9 p.m. to discuss child support and putting his name on the birth certificate, only 5 minutes before Ken's last known radio check that evening. So they were meant to meet at 9 p.m. He didn't do a radio check after 9:05. Then Michigan State Police believed that Jenny was murdered and then set the stage to look like a suicide, and they silently declared Ken as the only suspect. As forensics are being processed at the scene, Ken showed up in plain clothes, trying to gather information about the case, not knowing that he was putting a bigger arrow in the air, pointing at him as Jenny's ruthless killer. Sergeant Waterman ordered Ken to go back to the station and stay there. Sergeant Alan Ogg of Michigan State Police is shown the evidence photos from the night before that were taken by no one other than Kenneth Blue. And Alan looks at the photos and is keeping one thing in mind: the fact that Ken had complete control of the narrative that was being pushed. He was first on scene, he took the photos, and he probably harmed Jenny while he was actually on shift as a Buena Vista police officer. Alan mentions that Ken felt that he had gotten away with it until the point that the police chief ordered him to stay at the station and away from Alan's interview. Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit more. Alan pointed out, by the way, this is a little bit of the memorial. This is Jenny, and she loved monkeys, and she had decorated her son's nursery in monkeys. Little Braxton, what's his name? Okay, so Alan points out that Ken was very cooperative, and that maybe that was part of his plan to appear as cooperative as possible to give the appearance that he had nothing to hide. The interview took place only 9 hours after Jenny's body was found and conducted by Alan Ogg and Lieutenant Jason Teddy. After a few minutes of normal conversation between the three, Lieutenant Teddy asks Blue a loaded question. "Tell me what's going on and what happened out there." to which Blue answered that with his fabricated story of how he stumbled onto the scene and how he was patrolling the area and observed a parked car. So he pulled in behind, shined his spotlight in the car, and by that time, he says Patterson was pulling in behind him. This is the woman that Ken had carried on an affair with for over a year, the woman that was carrying his child, that he shows absolutely no emotion for as he lies about the events that took place that night. He pulled Patterson into his lies, saying that we approached the car together, and that Patterson clearly stated in his interview that Ken was already out of his cruiser and had already discovered Jenny's body before he even got there. He explains that the back door of the Aztec was opened and that he had walked around and saw Jenny lying on the ground. He explains that he saw a cord running from the top of the car and yelled to Patterson, "Hey, we got a body." He explains finding the note and searching for her ID. According to Blue, he didn't realize that it was Jenny until he saw the ID, to which he replied, "Oh shit, I know this girl." When asked if he or Patterson checked her vitals, he responded no. When asked why not, Ken said, "I don't know. There was no movement and I didn't want to disturb the scene. There's no chest movement and her lips were blue. There was nothing to give me the impression she was alive." I mean, that part to me is crazy because these cops, they're first responders. They know CPR. They know all of this. It easily could have been conducted, but it just wasn't. The first thing obviously I thought that because my thought follows up in the script. The first thing an officer should do is check vitals. There's a chance Jenny could have still been alive, but we will never know because the scene was tampered with and staged. Ken finally starts to tell the truth, admitting that he and Jenny had been friends for almost 10 years and that they were seeing each other. This is Jenny. Beautiful scenery. I love that. But that they have been seeing each other once or twice a month for the past year. Investigators asked how he wasn't able to tell it was Jenny, and he says, "I couldn't tell who it was due to her positioning." Which, just to give a layout of the scene, I'm not sure if it is later in the script, but just to give you guys a layout, if you've ever seen the little hatchbacks where you can put your luggage rack or whatever, and they have the two bars up there, what they're basically saying is that she had tied the electrical cord to the top of the car and then wrapped it around her neck and then hung herself. But if you think about that, realistically, even if you're 5'2", you could probably just stand up. Like, you're not jumping off the roof of your car. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see a way where she couldn't have, quote unquote, saved herself. So that part is extremely fishy to me. Investigators were asked, sorry, Detective Teddy responds, I don't mean to be an ass, but how could you not recognize her? To which Ken replied that he didn't recognize her because he went directly into cop mode. Teddy mentions that Ken got a good enough look at Jenny to tell that her lips were blue and that how could he miss the fact this was someone he had known for over a decade. Ken tried to say that it was because he was used to seeing her with her hair and makeup done, so it made it harder to identify her on the spot. Detective Teddy and Detective Og tell him that there are a lot of red flags popping up and glaring and that they can't ignore it. To this, the best response that Ken could come up with was, when I realized it was her, I knew this was going to happen, so bring it on, I guess. Detective Og starts to notice that Ken has scratches and a pretty bad mark near his eye. Ken's explanation, he'd been playing with his dog before his shift that evening. According to a coworker who ate lunch with Ken, he said that he had no scratches or marks on his body prior to the incident with Jenny. Detective Og brings this up to Ken and asks if they're going to find if they're going to find his skin underneath Jenny's fingernails. Ken shifts around and is very uneasy and answers, I don't know, I wasn't there. Multiple times during the interrogation, he denies ever having a sexual relationship with Jenny. He actually tells Detective Teddy there was no chance Jennifer's baby was his. They ask if he has any idea why she would tell people that he was the father, and he acts oblivious. They drop a bombshell on Ken, telling him Jenny's family was well aware of who the father of her child was, and she said it was you. She also told them that he was a cop, and that they gave him another chance, asking if there was any possibility of him being the father. He again told them no. They went to get a swab of Ken's DNA, and they had to get consent from him first. He hesitates and says, "Why does it feel more and more like I am a suspect?" Ken was as Ken was putting pen to paper to sign the release, he tells Detective Og and Teddy, "I can tell you guys one thing. I did, in fact, sleep with her." Ken admits that it looks like he killed her, but he swears that he didn't. Dr. Tinu Varani, a former department chief medical examiner in Saginaw, Michigan, says that it would be practically impossible to kill yourself in the way that Jenny was found. He says that it's inconsistent of a suicide. He explains that Jenny had bruising on her face, arms, hands, chest, and neck, and that the ligature marks from the extension cord were actually made post-mortem, meaning that basically she was positioned and that the extension cord was added after she had already lost her life. If she didn't commit suicide, then how did Jenny die? The medical examiner explains that she died from asphyxiation from a chokehold, something that is commonly taught to officers. Ken Blue was not only trained in these chokeholds, he was actually the trainer for other officers. He actually had his chokehold manual out and in the front seat of his cruiser. Jenny's death is officially ruled a homicide. I'm just going to check out on comments, go a little midway through, see how we're feeling. It is horrible. It's awful. It is so terrible. Like, and the fact that he was so close to getting away with it's crazy. Like, had his fellow officer not had a good moral compass and figured out, hey, like, this dude is full of it, like, he could still be walking around. Like, he could have gotten away with this. It happened. I feel like that happens. And it is. It's just awful. Okay, so I'm going to get back into it. Alrighty. So during Jenny's autopsy, the medical examiner finds a tip to a latex glove, which not only had blood and saliva on the outside, but also had blood on the inside. The DNA results showed blood on the inside is Ken Blue's, and the mixture on the outside was a mix of Ken and Jenny's blood. Here's another picture of Jenny in a Michigan State game. It was thought that Jenny must have bitten Ken's finger during the assault, causing him to bleed and lost the tip of his glove. While Jenny still lost her life, her valiant efforts trying to fight Ken off eventually led to the arrest of her and baby Braxton's murderer. His blood was all over, from the extension cord to her clothes, patrol car, and uniform. He had given investigators a laundry bag with his uniform and said it was the one that he was using that evening. This was easily disproven, as it was clear that the uniform he turned in was not the one that he was wearing that evening. While searching his truck, they found the uniform he was actually wearing that night hidden under the seat. Ken's critical flaw was believing that he was the smartest man in the room. He believed that he could get away with this. He believed that no one would question him or his authority. He truly believed that he was smarter than anyone else. Ken's fingerprints were everywhere, specifically in Jenny's car. And this is one of the things where I was saying plausible deniability. I do believe that he, after this happened, he was like, I have to be the one that goes in the car and touches everything, because if I don't, then all my DNA, all my fingerprints are already here. They're going to hem me up. So there was no way that he was getting out of this unless he inserted himself into the investigation. Okay, so his fingerprints were everywhere. One of the fingerprints left behind was actually in blood. The fingerprint that they found damaged the print as if the finger had some kind of trauma, as if someone had been biting down on it. Blue was fingerprinted, and they were sent to the lab, where they were 100% matched to be found to be the prints at the scene. Ken was caught red-handed, so to speak, and the wounded finger matched as well. The three items found 195 feet from her vehicle also tied back to Ken: the necklace charm and the blood matched Jenny. And the cigarette butt was covered in Ken's DNA. The medical examiner explains that Jenny's nose started to bleed during a scuffle or while she was passing away. The investigators believe that Jenny and Ken met at Ken's spot to discuss the baby, except Jenny was completely unsuspecting of what Ken was about to do. They believe that he came up behind her and choked her out while she was in. Jenny fought heroically for her and baby Braxton. After she passed away, Ken staged the scene to look like a suicide, not thinking of Officer Patterson possibly coming up to look for him. Jenny fought till the bitter end, and the scratch marks on Ken were caused as she tried to rip his arm away from her neck. Jenny's fight was one of the things that made this case so strong. The amount of DNA evidence was astounding. The drop of blood, the necklace charm, the cigarette butt, inevitably led them to being able to piece this case together through evidence in the scene and the scene being contaminated by Ken's presence at the scene. After Ken killed Jenny, he placed her in the backseat of her car and then drove to where Jenny and the car would be eventually found and started putting the scene together. He typed the suicide note, leading investigators to believe that this was not a crime of passion, but a cold, calculated move by one of their own. A man who took an oath to uphold the law to seek justice for those who were harmed. Ken's blood was all over Jenny's back seat, in the fabric of the seat, and in the door panel, leading them to theorize that he had moved the car, gotten out, and tied the extension cord around her neck and pushed her out. Detectives get a search warrant for his house, where they find more extension cords just like the one used to stage her suicide, and the cords they found were neatly wrapped and tied off with a zip tie. While searching the drawer, they actually found a space that looked like one of the extension cords had been taken out and used, and a used zip tie laying near them. His computer showed searches on the best way to commit suicide, the most painless way to commit suicide, and what are the dynamics surrounding vascular circulation. It seemed the evidence was almost too perfect. Gary Ginther examined the suicide note and found 14 latent fingerprints matching Ken Blue on the back of the note. Not one of the fingerprints in the notes matched Jenny Webb. It would be those fingerprints and the condition of the prints that sealed Ken's fate. There was not damage to the fingerprints like there was at the scene because of Jenny biting on his finger, which means that Ken had already written the note when he showed up to meet with Jenny on August 31st at 9 p.m. The fingerprints on the notes led the investigators to believe that this was premeditation. Ken Blue was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree assault on a pregnant person with intent to cause miscarriage or stillbirth. They would have still charged him with another count of murder of the unborn baby, but unfortunately, Michigan state law does not allow for a murder charge against an unborn baby, even if the baby, like Braxton, was almost fully grown. Jenny was 8.5 months pregnant with Braxton, meaning there's a very good chance that Braxton could have survived outside Jenny with early medical intervention. Blue's sister, Debbie Dennis, has denied since the very beginning that Ken could have done this. She says that she knows her brother and that he isn't capable of such a heinous crime. Debbie believes that Jenny killed herself. She actually says some women can be dramatic and that they can be wrapped up, and she could have wrapped the cord around her neck to scare him, and it could have been an accident. She believes her brother could have been set up, and that none of Debbie's accusations of policeman contact, misconduct have been substantiated. Over a year later, on September 19th, 2012, the trial of Ken Blue started. The prosecution called 31 witnesses, while the defense only used one during the 3 weeks of trial. Kenneth Blue never took the stand, and the jury deliberated for 2 hours before settling on guilty on all counts. counts, such as this. Sorry. Webb prepared a statement for Ken that she read on his sentencing day. It started, "An evil monster is the only word that I can think of for you. So go to your cage and think about how you squeezed the breath out of my daughter and my unborn grandson, and I hope that haunts you every day for the rest of your life." Kenneth Blue was sentenced to life in prison without a possibility for parole. And in a statement to Crime Watch Daily, Ken said, "After consulting with my legal counsel, I do not feel it is appropriate to comment on the vague, inaccurate, and hypothetical statements from alleged expert and witnesses of with personal agendas, or the total disregard for prosecution procedures outside of judicial proceedings." Ken Ballou believed that he could get away with it. He never admitted his guilt and has exhausted all of his appeals trying to get a reduction in his sentence. Gary Gunter was so affected by this case, he tears up saying that Jenny was their best witness. He was very upset because Jenny's baby boy was so close to birth. Okay, and this picture right here that they're showing, this is the chokehold that opposite. Oops, of course it moved. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Let me check what everybody's saying, and then we'll go back to that. Yeah, like thank goodness she told her family, like, he's a cop, blah blah. Like, thank goodness, because if she hadn't, God knows, like, if she had kept the secret that he wanted her to, and I truly believe that was part of his motive. I think he thought, Jenny, she's Jenny. She loves me. She believes me. She's not telling anybody about me. You know what I mean? And she's just so lucky that she had told her family, that she had put him in her phone. It's Ken Cop Boo. You know what I mean? Like little things like that, and little things like that we don't even think about. Like her mom knowing that, you know, Jenny would never use size 10 font. You know what I mean? She would never use just the regular Arial that comes with that word. Like her mom knew that about her, and she fought for her, and that's so powerful because Jenny was the best witness out of the entire thing. Okay, so let's go down here. Okay, so this is the chokehold. This is Saginaw County medical examiner Dr. Connie Burani, and he demonstrates how one's neck would be compressed to cut off oxygen, etc. Okie dokie. So let's go. Okay. Want to make sure I'm reading right. Okay. So Gary Gunther was really affected by the case. He was so upset because Jenny's baby. God made her bite his finger, and God made him bleed all over the scene. In the end, Dawn realized that a bad cop killed her daughter, but that good cop made sure that he went to prison. Story, life in prison, or 65 years. Ken later appealed his sentence because he was somewhat as typical in this case. Reluctantly, the judge ordered that his sentence be reduced from 65 years to 18. Judge Jackson did have a few choice words to say to Blue about his resentencing. This was Judge Jackson's words. Because of the absolute heinous nature of the crimes committed by Blue, it was my intention to impose a sentence for the assault conviction that would ensure that he never got out of prison, Jackson said on Monday. Now that the Court of Appeals has upheld all of his convictions, my original objection has been accomplished. I'm sorry, guys, I'm tongue-tied. Because of his absolute heinous nature, because of the absolute heinous nature, I read that already, sorry. He also said that now the Court of Appeals, no, read that. Okay, let's see what the last is. Okay, in the end, the means of which the victim died is immaterial, where there's overwhelming evidence that Officer Blue killed the victim by means of violent assaults. And that is that story. In the screen share. And that is the story of Ken Blue and Jenny Webb. Anybody have any thoughts? I think it is an absolute travesty that he only got that long. He only got 18 years. Like, seriously, like 18 years for killing a pregnant woman? Like, it makes absolutely no sense. None whatsoever. I feel for Jenny. I feel for her family. I I always hate these stories because, or I don't hate them, but I hate the mother in me feels the way the mother feels in all of this. Like, I can feel Dawn. Like, I can understand not understanding your daughter. Not understanding the suicide note and whatnot, and it's just sad. Stina says, I think when cops do stuff like that, it should be a higher sentence because they take advantage of their power, position, and power. Yeah, Melissa, you're right. It's insane. And what's terrible about that is that my biggest thing is that Chomos, for instance, they are going to go, and whether they get 2 years, 10 years, 5 years, they're going to get really messed up in the prison system because whether or not you're a bad person or whatever you want to talk about, in prison for terrible things, there are dads in there and they care. But cops, they're put into a special pod. They're typically cops are put into a pod that is inside of a women's prison for their own protection. And I understand if you're going down for murder and the cop that did it is in your prison, you're probably going to take him out. I get that. But at the same time, like, not that there should be street justice, but where is this the suffering? Like, you're still getting preferential treatment. You know what I mean? Like, in a way, you're still getting it. And I do understand it in some certain circumstances where it's like, an officer. I get it. There are certain circumstances where it does make sense that that they wouldn't be in regular population. But I also think that it's just terrible that there is no kind of way for anyone to get at them. Like, they're just, I feel like you're chilling doing their time. And I absolutely hate that. I don't think that we should put drug addicts in prison. I think that is incredibly stupid because they need help. And I think that there are a lot of gray areas and a lot of things like that where prison may not be the answer. But in this case, prison is 110% the answer, and it shouldn't be pleasant. It shouldn't be cool. It shouldn't be nice. It shouldn't be great. Any of those things. Like, I believe in humane treatment for prisoners, but I also believe that if you do something like this to someone, like an eye for an eye, like if the rest of your life sucks because you killed someone, you chose that. You made that choice. Like, he literally decided on the side of a road that Jenny's life didn't matter, Braxton's life didn't matter, his wife's life and their children didn't matter. Only Ken. The only person that mattered in the whole situation was Ken Blue, and that's it. It's disgusting. If I can ever find out how to use my community tab, I would like to put up a poll for what you guys would like to hear next week. Let me know. Give me any feedback you might have about how this went. I know that I wanted to have this pre-recorded so the story went really smoothly. And I know I stumbled because I'm a terrible public reader and I hadn't went over that and double checked everything. So there's several like misspelled words. So I was trying to figure it out. But that's what I'd like to do from here on out is have like a pre-recorded and then we'll go in, we'll chat, we'll talk about the system, we'll talk about sentencing, we'll talk about the victims and what could have been done. And in this story specifically, I hope if anybody gets anything out of this, meet people in public places. I know that that sounds so silly, and I know that you should be able to trust your boyfriend or who you're sleeping with or any of those things, but just meet people in public places. If you're having an issue with a significant other, a friend, anyone, meet them in a public place, please, because things like this happen. They truly do. And Ken got caught because Officer Patterson was done with his shit. He was like, I am done with you sleeping on the job. I'm gonna come catch you. And he caught him murdering his girlfriend. I mean, if Patterson had rolled up 10 minutes earlier, would he have been hurting Jenny? You know what I mean? Like, right? I thought that was so cute. Like, when I read that, I was like, that's my mama right there. Because I would leave everybody a note in a different colored pen. Like, it'd have a little envelope. Like, it's just the type of person that you are. And your mom of everybody knows that about you. You know what I mean? I thought that was so cute. She was like, it would have been pink, purple, green, or what was it? Pink, purple, green glitter pen. I was like, oh, this is adorable. I do think that Michigan State Police really did a great job. I think that they set an example of how to handle an officer when they do something like this. I think that it was just all around good police work because the contamination that Ken did to that scene, he could have really messed it up. He really could have, depending on his lawyer and how they had went after the evidence, because he had plausible deniability for almost everything. He had plausible deniability for everything with blood almost, and the fact that he was the baby's daddy. And I was just thinking about what you said, Stina. You're right. Like the power and the way they take advantage of their position. It's almost like what's it called? It's what they're talking about with Colleen Ballinger. It's like it's almost like grooming through a power imbalance kind of thing. Like, you know, and you would never think that a cop would be the one that would do something like that to you. You know what I mean? You think they know the law, they know what's going to happen if they do. You feel a level of safeness, especially meeting a cop who's in his uniform in his patrol cruiser. Like, oh, oh, you're good, you're good. I totally get that, girl. Totally. But what did everybody think? Out of curiosity, is this a thumbs up, thumbs down? Do we any feedback? My husband is supposed to be in here, but I haven't seen him comment, so I'm sending him a strongly worded text about support. He says he always sits behind me on the couch, and he's like, "I just want to say things, and I can't because you're live, and I don't want it to like pick up." I'm like, "You would say things. You're welcome to it." By the way, some of the drama that's going on right now has been insane. Like I can't even keep up with it. Like I've started creating, so I've been working on like doing research and whatnot for different things. And I came back to YouTube today, and I was just like, yes, partner violence is the leading cause of death. And no, in that sense, it isn't surprising. You're right. And also, the most dangerous time for a woman is when she is leaving a relationship. And from what it sounded like from Jenny's friends and family, she was done. She was like, I'm good. I just bought this house. I got a good job. Like, I got me. I'm taking care of me. And I don't need you. And maybe he couldn't handle that. Maybe he wanted to be in control of her and his wife. You know, some people want multiple like households. It makes no sense to me because it's a whole load of stress that I couldn't deal with. but some people, that's what they want. So I don't know. I think that I have a feeling that he had a power complex, and I think that Jenny shut him down. I think it got to the point where she was like, I'm done. Forget this. I'm over you. Just, I'm done. And I don't think he liked that. I think that that conversation was, listen, I want you to pay child support. Your wife's probably going to find out because of that. And he made a, I don't know though. He premeditated it because he wrote up the suicide note before he ever went out there. So he had premeditated what he was going to do to her before he ever did it. And honestly, who is so freaking organized? They have their extension cords wrapped up and tied up with a zip tie. Like seriously, who is that? Maybe it's just me, but like that's just so too organized for me. And like you pull it out, you clip the little zip tie off, and you leave the zip tie laying there, and you leave like an empty spot in the drawer. It's like, in a way, he used his police expertise to his advantage, but in a way, he was kind of dumb about everything. I do. I think it was a power complex. Like I think he thought he could get away with it. Yes, yes, Nina, I agree. I think that he knew. I think that he went out there with two objectives. Like, you're gonna not put my name on the birth certificate because it's gonna mess my life up, and that's not what I want. Or I'm gonna do this. And I think that Jenny was a fighter, obviously, and she just was like, Melissa. I don't even know if I could find an extension cord if I wanted to right now. Like, and if I did, they probably wouldn't work. Like, and they string tied up with no zip tie. Yes, yes, I agree, Melissa. I agree that police work. It to me, it pulls in two totally different types of people. I believe it, like from my personal experience, like with my aunt, she has such a servant's heart. She wants to help people. In the 80s, she was a beat cop and she loved it. She loved being able to like help people in the community and things like that. And then it was like when she went into homicide for a short while, and then she did I believe robbery, I think, for a bit, and then she was moved to captain of IA, and you know, she really had what it took to be a police officer. And I'm so proud of her for all those things. But I think that on the other hand, it attracts sociopaths who want power. Yeah, I can't, I wasn't organized before the kids. I can't even imagine how I'd be like, no. There's no organization going on anywhere. But does anybody have any cases that they'd like to do next week? I really enjoyed this. And out of curiosity, how do you think? Do you think that doing it pre-recorded and then a live after would be funner, or if it would be more fun to kind of do it like this, where I'm going through the script and I pop in two or three times and we like speak about the case as I'm going? I appreciate everybody stopping by. I just want to say, by the way, I am so blown away by all the support. Like, you guys, like, I seriously put this off for so long, and to see like the people watch my videos, even like it could be so many less. Like, and it's not like I see like, just thank you guys. Like, I really appreciate it, and it means the world to me. It's been surreal in a way. Oh, drawer that'll work. Yeah, right. Like, just throw it in there. It's fine. Yes. Yeah, I think they do. I think they do attract good people, but I think the bad eggs are bad, just awful, because I think that they get a lot of power complex. I think that any job where you can ruin someone's life in a moment, I think that there are going to be those people who want that, and I think with the military, especially military and active wartime, definitely attracts a certain type of personality and people who want to do really dark things. Like I am a military brat. My sister was military, so I've kind of been around it my whole life, and I have definitely met some people who are just terrifying, like really scary. When someone can just you and literally not miss a beat, that to me is terrifying. There's nothing more terrifying than someone who can be calm. Because if you're yelling, if you're showing your anger, you're expressing it, you're letting it out. It's flowing through you and getting out of you. But if you're just like, yep, I'm gonna STAB you right now. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. And you do it like those are the scary people to me. The people who can just be flatlined and like there's nothing there. Right? I love a good junk drawer. I always find like the best stuff in them too. Like always. Yep, you either have a power calling serve or a power complex. You're 100% right. It's one or the other, unfortunately. Oh, really? You guys want to see who the new co-host is for the evening? I got a rotating six. This is Bill. 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 He is our resident cat dog. It's so funny. I don't know if you guys like the cat. Do you know like the cat thing where they'll like rub on your legs? This dog does that. Like he runs through your legs and does figure eights and stuff. It's great. He's a good boy. Oh, hi, baby. Hi. Shh. Okay. Give me just a second. All right. All right, guy. Mommy, okay, honey, I'm on a stream. Okay, so shh. Give me a minute. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Oh my gosh, my husband makes fun of me for the same thing. Like I have so many apps and I don't know where anything is. It's ridiculous. But already, guys, my little one just got up, so I'm gonna have to hop off. But I had so much fun with this. I'm really. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, he's Bill after my father-in-law. We lost him, and we got him and Buster. Where Buster? This is Buster. Um, and they are Puggle and Applehead Chihuahua mixes. Um, okay, I'll be done in just a second. And they're Applehead Chihuahua and Puggle mixes, and we got them right after we lost my father-in-law, and so it's Bill and Buster. But yeah, Buster. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Yeah, and if you have any suggestions, anything like that, reach me at on Instagram at Mrs.MandyKelly, and I will see you next week with a new story. Have a good night, guys.